everyone, and welcome to our interview series where we're highlighting ways that people are fostering mental health for Mental Health Awareness Month. And today, my guest, I'm so excited. And I feel like I'm always saying I'm so excited, but I really am. I'm excited to announce our special guest today is Aida Murad. And she is just phenomenal. I love doing Zoom calls with her because she always has her beautiful art in the background. Aida, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Donna, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Honored. And I want you to tell us a little bit about the work you're doing. I know you've got a really exciting project coming with a summit that you're working on, and then also a little bit about your art and what you're doing yourself.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I wear a couple of hats. And I'll start with first the Never Alone Summit, which is coming up very soon. So it's May 22nd to 24th. And it's really very simple. It's a 3-day summit where we're aiming to inspire people as well as empower people with resources and tools to remind them that they're not alone. And when they feel alone, what can they do to feel empowered and to feel in community? So the reason we started that, so it's run by Chopra Foundation and John Brick Foundation. And it was just alarming to see the number of suicide rates increasing during COVID. And there's a whole loneliness epidemic happening. And there's a lot that we can do. I know personally what it feels like to be alone. And I know that thinking process, because I'll share shortly about my own struggles with mental health and just wellness. It can easily go in that bucket of I'm alone and there's no help. But in fact, there is help and you don't have to experience this journey alone. So it's the summit is 3 days and we're getting people from the mental health bucket, the wellness bucket, as well as consciousness. So I'm hoping people will join. So that's one of my hats. The second thing is I'm a startup coach and I focus on founder well-being. So I've been building companies for about 10 years. And in that building process, I've noticed that the entrepreneurship narrative is so backwards. We're programmed to work so hard to the point that we burn out. And if there's an exit, we can't even enjoy it because we're either sick physically or mentally. It's unhealthy. So, I asked myself this question because I've experienced burnout of what's the point of building a company if you're not going to enjoy it? Right? For me, there is no point. So I decided to build a curriculum and I'm just working with founders who are building social enterprises to change that narrative of taking care of yourself and taking care of your business. So that's the second hat. The third hat is my art. And
I love that you have it back there.
Yeah, this piece is about what I hope would be out in the world. COVID for me, period, was really hard because I live alone and I didn't have human contact for, I don't know how many days, maybe 50 days. So it was very, very hard. And I just felt all these things I've been trying to run away from just caught up with me because I have no distractions. And so I just turned to art again. I'll explain why I turned to art before, but this was what I was hoping to see out in the world. And it brightens up my day. So art for me is very personal. And because I used to be paralyzed at some point in my life, and I have permanent damage in my hands because of an autoimmune disease, causing permanent damage in different parts of my body. And when doctors told me I'll likely not walk again or move my hands easily, I just, that was a very dark period for me. But then I decided to turn my bad into beautiful. And I asked myself, what is it that I want to do? Assuming this is the last day, or that, I really wanted to live. So I said art. I always wanted to be an artist, but growing up in Jordan or even around the world, art is treated as a hobby. It's something cute you keep at home. So I just threw myself into art as a way of coping with a lot of the emotions I had that I had no place to share. and somehow it turned into 11 exhibitions. And I paint only with my fingers. That's a because, and I don't use a paintbrush, just symbolically to show that those fingers that are meant to be, on paper damaged or broken or not normal, that I can actually create beautiful pieces of art.
I think it's so awesome. I love the colors. I love you just look into the artwork that you've done, and I've had the honor of being able to see it in person, and it just is so bright and so happy. Like it brings out a lot. And I think that you're right that art is often looked at as a hobby, and it's not given the honor that it deserves. And it's such, I think creativity and art is such a big piece of mental health. And one of the things that I have noticed in these interviews, because I've been asking people, how are you fostering mental health? And one of the things that has come up an awful lot, I mean, we've heard about exercise and nutrition and getting outside to walk and all those things that you think about, but so many people have talked about creativity and
Mm,
how some form of art or creation, some gardening, some building, a lot of a lot of carpentry. I think we're going to come out with a lot of carpentry in this. A lot of people
not
building
a skill
things.
set I have, so I would love to barter somehow.
Well, it's funny. I was just telling you about uh, the person Brandon who I interviewed yesterday, and he had said he realized he didn't have any hobbies. He didn't create, and so he said, "I hate art. I don't like art because I've always been, I've tried to create something that I liked, and then I didn't." So he said it was always frustrating with me for me. So he said during COVID, he's been building. He's been building things, and he said he's gotten such pleasure. He said he's probably happiest doing that. And I
Mm,
think that one of the benefits of this time is people are beginning to turn to things that are um, more for our souls.
mm,
I
yeah,
think maybe it's because we're spending so much time in front of a screen and we have to do that. And then it's like, okay, what can I do that goes back to something
right,
that feeds my soul?
right.
Um, and I think people are finding that, which is great.
Yeah, I'll say, I struggled with that at the start. One, I have to say, we are privileged to be able to be in a situation where we have a safe home
Hmm.
and food around us, and we don't have to be outdoors. So for me, seeing that that was a privilege, I automatically felt guilty about it. And which actually, the way I reacted to it was I threw myself in more work. And I didn't allow myself that gift of time, of relaxing, and also discovering what was inside me that was waiting to come out. But then I realized, like, as soon as we are allowed to go outside, people who've had this privilege are going to have to step up as leaders in different ways to support people who haven't been able to. uh, so I allowed myself. I actually, really, there was a couple of weeks where I just closed myself to the narrative or the habit of diving into work so much, and I got lost inside of me. And I birthed new art pieces. I discovered new things that I like, and some things actually that I've been running away from,
Yeah.
my own traumas. And so I love that more people are creating, and I hope more people create during this time and uncover gifts that I call them, like, it's treasures. We're always on a treasure hunt.
Yes.
Mm,
And one of the things that now I met Ida through Nexus,
yeah.
um, and which is an amazing organization. But one of the first times I really remember sitting down and talking to you, you have dinners at your house, and I was part of one of the dinners, and you open your house and invite people to come together kind of that don't know each other, and it's such a beautiful practice. And I think in terms of that, never alone, and thinking about the summit, how can we reach out and form those communities? And I think that your dinners, and I know you've done a few virtual dinners
Mm.
since this began, but what a beautiful way to reach out to people, and what a different way to foster mental health, and how important that is.
Right. It was honestly, yeah, I did 200 dinners last year, and I'm so happy that I had you at one of them, and hopefully I'll do more in the future. But the reason I did that is, again, I know what it means to be alone, and part of that was my own healing process. But then also, it's like that giving and receiving relationship.
Hmm.
When you give, you also have to allow yourself to receive. And for me, having that it was such an honor to open my home and to cook for people and to just see their spirits come to life. And there's nothing more for me intimate than breaking bread with someone.
Yes.
And when I think of times now where we can't be in people's homes, I remember I was struggling with the concept of not having physical touch or human touch. And I love hugs. I'm a hugger.
Yeah.
And I asked someone, she basically said, Aida, you can transcend like the limitation or this barrier on the screen. All you need is just look at someone's eyes, really, as cheesy as it sounds, and take a moment to connect.
Hmm.
And she just somehow allowed me to just shift that usual, the way I was used to receiving connection. And I believe now we can transcend even those challenges of computer, limitations, and deeply connect, because this is a time when we, number one, need connection with ourselves first, and then connection with others. So I'm hoping through the Never Alone Summit, we remind people we can connect, but then there's a ton of events happening every single day that allow for connection.
I think it's awesome. There's so much out there right now. And in some ways, because it's virtual, it makes it almost easier because people aren't running around. They're like, oh yeah, I can do that. Depending on what it is. And I like the way that people are prioritizing and saying, I'll do this, I won't do this, and
Right.
finding ways to connect.
But Donna, can I add something about the type of connection also, because it's easy to talk about one level of how are you, how is quarantine life, and not really go to that level of vulnerability that one needs in order to foster mental health.
Yes.
So there was one person in my life who just told me that he loved me when I'm happy, when I'm sad, when I'm mad, and he just wanted me to show up as me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never told that before. I was never told that they'll stick around however I'm feeling and in that spectrum of emotions. So I always start every conversation saying that this is a safe space,
Mm-hmm.
that you can show up, you have permission to show up as you need to be. If you are feeling angry, then please show up as you, and we will hold space for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people they need to give themselves that permission first to feel safe. But then I encourage others to also remind people, because it's easy to stay in your corner and have that mask on. But then again, what's the point?
One of the things that I find really interesting, we started this conversation where I said, um, this afternoon, I am doing a reunion with my high school class,
Mm.
and we're doing a Zoom reunion, and how, and this Sunday, yesterday I had a conversation with somebody that I was a CIT at camp with 35 years ago. And we're going to have a Zoom call with a bunch of friends of mine from camp from 35 years ago. And one of the things, I was just talking to my daughter about this, that somehow even though I haven't talked to a lot of these people, they know who I am
Mm,
fundamentally because people who knew you in high school, I mean, there's history there
mm,
that is so interesting. So I find that a lot of people, my peers, are connecting back
mm,
to people who you went through hard times with.
mm.
It's an interesting, who know who you are in a very different way.
Yeah, I think that's it's beautiful. And I also will add that I've been surprised, actually really surprised, that I've made such deep, quick connections during COVID with people that I didn't even know.
Yeah,
It's just that we're kind of all, I don't want to say all, but I've experienced, and the people I've talked to have experienced, this breaking of a shell.
yeah,
We're shedding. And when you're shedding, you're becoming more open and vulnerable. Like, we want deeper. People are craving that. So they're showing up differently, especially with people who don't know their past. So it's been an interesting, like,
yeah. That's interesting as well.
yeah. But you've inspired me to, as we were talking, to reach out to my high school friends, because I haven't really talked to anyone in years. So I will do that.
I do think there's a vulnerability in that I think when we're so afraid, we have this human condition, um, and this is a time when we're reaching out, and people are more open. I would agree with you. So, and I know that you have a big transition coming. You're moving out to California. What
I
are some of the ways that you are fostering mental health for yourself? You've mentioned a few.
Yeah. One, I have a tendency to overwork and to find my self-worth through work. And I'm not at the point where I've solved it. It's a constant work in progress, but I'm noticing it. I'm aware of it. So when I go into 15-hour work days, which is very unhealthy, I'm like, okay, Ida, let's go back to the root cause of this. Let's take a step back. You're budgeting 3 hours to watch Harry Potter, you know,
Right.
or, something that has nothing to do with work. So just being aware for me and I'm moving at the pace that I know is sustainable. Second is, I love painting. You know that. So that's just, I've been experimenting with candle wax. So that's been really fun. And then third, meditating. I wasn't someone who meditated before. I just started during this period, and I do it twice a day. And so 40 minutes overall. And it's been life changing because I'm doing deep listening. It allows me to. So those are the three things that come to mind.
I think that's awesome. And I think that I love, even though you're working too much, you're working in an area that I think is a passion for you. And I think it is fulfilling. I do think it's important to set those limits and do things for you. But I think that the Never Alone Summit is going to be phenomenal. And sometimes that hard work working towards something, it's like, reminds me of being part of a play when I was never on the sports teams, but I was in plays, and you would work so hard. But then when it came to fruition, it was so incredibly fulfilling. And
Mm,
so I look forward to attending the summit.
yeah,
And I think it's going to start something really cool. We're really on this great narrative. Thank you so much for joining us. I
thank
love the work you're doing. We will include links to your artwork and to the Never Alone Summit, so that people can kind of see the work that you're doing in all senses. And just to repeat, Never Alone Summit, where can people, we're going to put it on, but can you just say where can people get information?
Yeah, so it's the Never Alone Summit website, which is Never Alone, one second, neveralonesummit.live. And they can just register. It's free, May 22nd to 24th. And it'll be 3 days full of inspiration and practical tools. So I'm excited to welcome everyone.
That's awesome. And thank you everyone for joining us. And thank you so much. Good luck on your journey. You're excitement. We'll
Thank
be continuing to be in touch, though. Great. Thank you, everyone.